What can kill you if not done properly? Fredman 124 said. Was feeding our horse lawn clippings. He choked on a wad of grass. Passed out and down on his side when an old crusty cowboy neighbor came over and kicked him in the throat a few times. Guess that dislodged it as he was back on his feet in a few minutes. Quit feeding him lawn clippings after that. This Wilson and Budley said. Use squirrels. This is the correct answer. It's not impossible for other animals to choke, but it's far more common for humans due to the changes in our throats for speech. Fun fact, babies can breathe and drink at the same time, but lose that ability when they learn to talk, because the throat arrangement that allows them to do both is incompatible with speech. Rena 704 said. I was a pretty high-level competitive gymnast who competed at the national level in the early 2000s. So this is all from personal experience. Any activity involving height and velocity has the potential to kill you. All of the mats in the gym have a similar warning on them. If you are going for a big skill and bail halfway through or mistime something and land wrong, you could come away with a major spinal injury or it could kill you. I personally know someone who broke their neck and was paralyzed from the neck down for life. I've heard of girls dying on rare occasions. The other life-threatening angle is the toxic culture. There is a very toxic, highly critical of young girls' bodies and suck up the pain culture, which is a breeding ground for eating disorders. I once visited a girl in the hospital whose eating disorder was so bad that she had forgotten an entire month of her life because her brain wasn't getting enough calories to function properly. The nurses had to cut her food into tiny pieces to try to convince her to eat. She was in middle school. I had another gymnast try to convince me to help her hide her bulimia from her mom, and I had to try to convince her to tell someone and get help. An estimated 10% of people with anorexia nervosa die. It's actually the deadliest mental health disorder. For the most part, if you mess up in gymnastics, you're looking at a sprain, broken bone, that sort of thing. But in extreme circumstances it can kill you. Jigglerizzapuff said. I did gymnastics as a child, and got to a pretty high level for our age group. Knocked a truth out with my own knee during a forward flip, like I tucked in too fast too tight or something. A girl broke her arm in a high jump exercise we did once, and then there were smaller injuries like the burns you would get from accidentally sliding across the mats upon landing. I broke both bones in my wrist, in an unrelated incident, and stopped going during recovery and just never went back. I've heard of some pretty horrendous accidents in gymnastics, particularly involving professionals or adults in general, when they get to the more intense stuff. It is a dangerous sport, but also incredible, and I think not enough people appreciate how much work goes into it and how much skill it takes. PBJ0308 said. I sprained my ankle so many times landing on the edge of the mat, dismounting or falling off of bars that my ankle just pops out when I'm walking. It's been 13 years and still happens. PT only helps so much too. I injured my back landing wrong tumbling on floor when I was 11. Nothing helped, no NSAIDs even touched the pain, I just learned to deal with it. Eventually I developed arthritis in a few joints and thinned my discs. So many cortisone shots began to not last long. I work on my feet all day and it was getting to the point where I would cry almost every day. Had to get the procedure where they burned off nerve endings so I didn't feel pain anymore. I was finally pain-free after 15 years. It's been 2.5 years, feels like it's slowly coming back, but man, it was a journey I wouldn't wish upon anyone. Not to mention the countless times I would balk and land on my neck. I became anxious something would happen so I would balk. Doesn't make sense, BC. I could still hurt myself. Unsure how it never snapped. I saw so many career-ending injuries in my gym and during meets. It's upsetting and scary because you really never know when something could go wrong. X4M9 said. Everyone else has already given full explanations, so I'll just give some personal anecdotes. A close friend of mine has broken her back twice from the sport. Fortunately, she only coaches now. My sister has sprained her joints countless times and has gotten a good amount of fractures over the years. Seems like she's in a cast or brace somewhere at least half a year. Plenty of her friends have had much worse happen. The high up swinging around and positioning can do major damage after minor mistakes. Even just bounding around on the floor is awful on your ankles. The constant landing and jumping around really does a number on your joints. He's the Jimo said. The way I was taught, remove the spare. Crack the seal on the lug nuts with the car still on the ground. Jack up the car. Place the spare next to, not knocking over the jack as the car goes up. Bring as you've already cracked the seal on the lug nuts, remove them with your fingers. Put them in a safe spot. Remove flat wheel. Obtain spare, put flat where it was, apply spare. Put lug nuts back on. Use the lug nut tightener tool to just nip them up so the bevel of the lug nut seals in the rim. You are not wanting to rock the car at this point. Remove the flat from under the car. Wind jack down. Let the suspension take weight and then tighten the lug nuts. Take car to tire place. You need to fix or replace the flat anyway, and they can torque up the lug nuts. The reason why you're putting the tire under is so if the car falls it'll fall onto the tire. You're only slightly fucked them, as it mitigates against crush injury and damage to the car itself if it falls all the way. You may still be able to retrieve the jack and re-lift the car to complete the roadside repair. If the car has fallen onto the spare, maybe you have a cracked rim on that spare rather than a cracked shoe and damage to the hub assembly on the car. Your Affantasia said, I body check the fenders, use jack stands, put the tires under the unibody and leave the jack under there somewhere with very little tension just in case. Saw a car fall on my ex-roommate, lucky it hit everything around him. Dude was using a scissor jack to work on the car, tried to loosen a bolt and the car came down. Had a buddy jack up his Mustang by the axle while laying behind it on a slight downhill. As soon as the back tires came up the car rolled back and fell off the jack back on its tires. He came out for sure. Error 83 Nowser name said, electricity. Either working with it, or having the work done for you. If not done properly, you can die at it. Even now I have to admit that I worked under tension, 230 V, a lot. As I had little or no other option. I learned this skill in my previous job. You just can't shut down controllers or cabinets controlling entire factories. Even during maintenance. I, and our entire I&C department, were in endless discussion with the health and safety department for this, but they never gave a solution or even an advice. Most wires were only 24 V. Some were high-power 24 V battery wires, which can still burn you. Others were 1000 V plus DC low-power signal wires. But in the end you learned the hard way. Even if everything is turned off, even if you knew the installation out of your head, 1000 plus signals are coming from somewhere else in the factory. There is no guarantee that you've all shut them down. You need to expect every wire to be under tension and work accordingly. High voltage has its own risks, but with low voltage, 1000 V, just don't ever touch the copper with uninsulated tools or your bare fingers. Smart Guy 6962 said, my brother-in-law worked for PG&E in California and was out on a call for a downed power line off a main tower. They carry roughly 100 kilovolts, which is about 100,000 volts, and in the USA the home outlets use 120 volts and the big lines use 220 volts, so you can understand the raw power of what is in the line. The line got loose and landed on the boom lift truck, and the guy up in the boom lift lowered the bucket and jumped clear. But the guy saw a gas can on the truck and thought it would blow up. It wouldn't because it was grounded to the truck, and he ran up before my bill could stop him and grabbed the can. When he did that, the 100 kilovolt went straight through him since he was now grounded. He was blown a bit away and set on fire. When they put him out he was missing his whole arm and both legs below the knees. He also had burnt a path through his body. Even trained people make stupid mistakes out of fear and wind up dead. He did the right thing by jumping clear of the lift but made a fatal mistake by going back for a gas can. Inquisitive said, or riding your bike. I was riding my bike really fast one day on the sidewalk while looking for a building where I was to go for an appointment. The sidewalk was next to a busy, multi-lane road. I slammed right into the pole of a street sign that had been installed almost directly in the center of the sidewalk. Jerked my bike right onto the road, causing a car to come to a screeching halt a foot away from my legs. Funny to think I was more embarrassed than scared in that moment. Ellie0113 said, an old friend of mine is a Bosnian Serb. She and her family still experienced their apartment being bombed, friends and family dying, and ended up fleeing to the US. Like you said, most people don't know what a Bosnian Serb is, but she didn't go around broadcasting it because despite everything her family went through, if someone did know the difference, it wouldn't have mattered in their eyes. Witbat Mobile said, yeah, my record is 195 kilometers per hour, on a closed course. Something else people generally underestimate is brake distance. if you aren't used to high-speed driving. I remember when I got to do 195 kilometers per hour, I probably could have kept going and hit 200, but I wanted to give myself some extra space for braking, which turned out to be right thing to do, as it was somewhat surprising just how far down I had to push the brake pedal. I pushed the brake pedal down as much as I anticipated to be enough, but not harsh or enough to upset the car. Took a bit before I realized that I had pushed it down even more, so I gradually pushed it down to feel the car out. Edit. I'm looking forward to the day that I will be able to go down south to the Autobahn. Lobby Bobo said. A roommate almost killed me once because I asked, after he jacked up the car, if he had put it on the metal frame or something else. He insisted it was the frame and it was fine. I got about 6 inches from the car when the jack punched through the metal floorboard and the whole car went down. I looked at him and said that's what I meant by something else, which would have been funny if I hadn't almost just died. We spent the rest of the evening getting the jack unstuck from the floorboard. Kid was a dipshit. I'm now in the process of adopting his kid because he can't parent either. Dude is mess. A mediocre millennial said. Putting out a fire. There are 5 classes of fire based on fuel that is burning. The most common extinguisher is meant to extinguish Class A, B, and C fires. So just about any fire you'd encounter in your home not involving gasoline. A lot of common methods for putting out a fire could make the fire worse. Also busting windows, opening doors in a building engulfed with flames. The reintroduction of oxygen to fire can cause an explosion if the fire has used most if not all of the oxygen in the enclosed space. Don Berdon said. Literally everything. Walk wrong and yeah, get a cracked skull. Breathe wrong and yeah, might suffocate to death. Cook something wrong and you'll be poisoned. Say something wrong and yeah, get fucking murdered. Pet your cat wrong and they'll scratch you, possibly causing a deadly infection. Literally everything can be deadly when it's done wrong. Dr. HJONK said. Tourniquets, the thing where you tie material around someone's leg to stop blood flow if their leg is hurt, can completely cut blood off to the leg and could even make you need an amputation. I've always been told not to do them at ambulance cadets, because I'm not a professional and could seriously damage someone. Princess Di 123 said. Piercings, even just ear piercings. There are blood vessels and nerves and bacteria just in the body alone, and there's scar tissue that forms, and low-quality jewelry and improper equipment techniques can add to the risk of infections, healing problems, piercing complications. Please just go to a professional piercer. Clockwork Scully said. Testosterone hormone therapy. Whether you're a trans guy or not, too much testosterone can reduce your lifespan. It can also cause things such as heart disease or heart attack, sleep disorders, reduced production of sperm, and increase acne. D934197 said. Removing the knife from a body. Life-saving tip when stabbed, do not remove the knife. You are going to bleed to death. Instead take a rag. If there is no rag, then take off a piece of clothing. I hope you got underwear on today, and tie it around the knife, and then call 911 or your emergency medical line in your country. TLDR, just keep the knife in and leave the removal to the professionals. Abnegasser said. Maniçoba. A typical dish from the north region of Brazil, my country. It is basically a dish made with the leaves of cassava, which are extremely rich in cyanide. The leaves need to be continuously cooked for 7 days for the cyanide to be destroyed. Very delicious though. Sadly nobody cares said. Working on a Toyota Prius. There is a lot of very strong electricity that powers hybrid vehicles. It's not the volts that kill you, but the current. At my college, we cannot work on hybrid vehicles unless under close supervision. At least until we get our certifications. Board Borer said. Cleaning, especially with the industrial strength stuff, bleach is toxic by itself, and creates hazards when mixed with other chemicals. For example, if you mix bleach and drain cleaner, you make the ever so wonderful chlorine gas. Most cleaning chemicals are designed to be corrosive, and potentially deadly. This means you should always wear PPE, or at least wash your hands. Even basic soap can be dangerous, if it's ingested or inhaled. Some random koala 27 said. A lot of things actually. Cooking being one of them. Pufferfish is an infamous example. But things like tying a boat to a dock can actually kill if you are not careful. Here is S video of safety regulations. https://www.google.com/search?care course line plus handling plus accident plus prevention &o care course line plus handling plus accident plus prevention &AQ sequel.69i57j0i5i30.11861j0j9 client equal ms Android -onatlis -rvo3 source seed equals chrome mobile I equals dev -8